First thing we're going to do is we're going to open up this shield right here. And next thing we want to do is we want to disconnect this bolt and the bottom bolt over here. You just put the put the air ratchet on. You grab your wrench and you hold the bolt in the back. Okay, and then you can take your bolt out through the bottom right here. And we're going to need this later on because we're going to reuse it. And on the top one here, you can break it loose, and then you hold the back bolt over here. Then you just take the nut off. And we're going to replace it with a new one. Very simple. Once the bolts are out of there, the shock comes right out. You just have to rough it out a little bit because of the rust. We just take it out. And then we put our replacement back in the way that we took it out. Once we've got the shock in place, then we'll slide the bolt back in the way it came out, which was from the underneath the back here, back through here. And we just catch the nut. We don't tighten it up yet. We're just going to catch it right now. And then we're going to put the top bolt back through the way we took it out. As you remember, it went in this way here. So we're just going to turn the shock and get it to line up in there. Then we're going to put our bolt right through here. Tap it very easily until it comes through. Put a nut and flat washer, I should say, back on there. And what we're going to do is we'll tighten it up. I'm going to tighten the top one first because that's the way we took it off. On the bottom we're going to use air on it because it's nice and clean shot in there. We're going to put it on the nut, then we're going to hold the wrench on the other side, and then we'll shoot it in fairly tight. Alright, and last thing we're going to do is we're going to reattach our shield, and you just push it back in. All they are is little push pins, and they just push right back in. That's it. So everything is all back together, just as when we took it apart. Obviously, I have the vehicle up in the air, and what I'm going to basically do is we're going to remove the bolt, rather the bottom, right here. And if you look up top, on the top of the shock, you'll see two bolts right up here that you need to remove too. It's two 13mm bolts on the top of the shock right there. We need to remove those also. And I sprayed everything up with some penetrating oil to make it come out easier. So what I normally do is on the top bolts, I'm extremely careful with those because if they snap, you're going to have a problem. So what I do is on the top ones, I take those out by hand. You will have to just support the differential just a little bit, just to take the weight off of the shock. When you take the lower bolt out, it may stick just a little bit. So now that I have the weight off of the shock itself, we're going to take the bottom bolt out with the air gun, and then we'll take the top ones out by hand. obviously, if you don't have air power, you can do it with a ratchet also. These are 13/16 bolts through here. Now, if you didn't jack up the differential a little bit, the problem you run into is you wouldn't be able to get this bolt out of here. So by jacking it up just that little bit, you take the weight off of the shock, and you're able to just get the bolt out like that. Now we're going to take out the 2 bolts up top, and those 2 up top, remember I told you we sprayed them already with some penetrating oil just to loosen everything up. And those we're going to take out by hand because we don't want them to snap off like that. And we take the shock out and we get rid of it. What I always do to make things go a little bit easier, just take a second and put a little dab of Never-Seez or any kind of lubricant on the threads of the bolts so that they go back in without a problem. The way you put the bolts back in is you just screw them in by hand. You don't hit it with a ratchet until you're ready to tighten them up all the way. All right, so now we get our I might add that you'll see the top of the shock itself. This is angled. It's tilted a little bit, and if you notice that the shock has this type of an angle on it, so you want to put the shock in like this, because that way this, when it goes up at an angle like that, will be nice and flush or square up top there. All right, so let's screw it in there by hand first, just till you catch it by hand. And then once you catch it by hand, you're going to get the other bolt in also by hand. Once you have them both caught, then you can tighten them up as tight as you can make them. We're going to take off this strap that's on here now that held it up. Just cut it off and throw it away because you don't need it. And what you're going to do, if you got everything tied up on the top, is you're going to get your bolt in the bottom here and put it back through the same direction that you took it out. Put a nut and bolt on. And if you have your air gun, you use air. If you don't have an air gun, you tighten it up by hand. That's it. You're all done. Now we're going to do the one on the other side, and then we're going to lower it down, and we're all set. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.